Hey everybody, it's Josie. Welcome back to Cedar Creek Homestead. Out here on the back porch today and taking a little bit of break. We've just had thunderstorms move through, and so they're gone now. It's just kind of overcast, and so it's safe to come back out. We had lightning and winds and heavy rains, but they were calling for penny-sized hail, and we didn't get any of that. But we are thankful for the rain. There's no kind of damage or anything. Now I do have plants stuck everywhere, but it's hanging plants and container plants that we were afraid would get blown over and damaged. So I've got to put all that stuff back on when we where they go when we finish having our little conversation here today. I don't know about where you live, but here in Oklahoma, or this part of Oklahoma anyway, it's hay season, and our neighbor across the road from us that we get our hay from, they had their hay all cut, and yesterday they come out and baled it up, and so we've got hay out on the pasture ready to get moved over and ready to go for this winter. And people are out and doing a lot of things. People are working hard in their gardens and in their lawns and out on their farms doing building projects, all kinds of things, and even spending time out in recreation at the lakes and floating and doing all kinds of stuff. And I thought that this would be a good time for us to talk just a little bit about being safe out in the sun with the heat and everything that we face in the summertime. Yesterday I went out in the garden and had some chores that I needed to take care of out there. I try to go early in the mornings while the babies are still sleeping. I can slip out there and get a few hours of work done. And I had just a few things left to do. It was really hot and humid yesterday. I had just a few things left to do, and I was kind of feeling kind of hot, kind of dizzy just a little bit. But sometimes some of my medication will do that if I'm bending and stooping a lot. And I, of course, was doing that, working in the vegetable garden, and I thought, well, I just have a few more things to do, and so I'm just going to push myself to get those things done and then go back to the house. And by the time I got that done, I realized that I had really kind of overdone it just a little bit, so I did come back home. I stopped about halfway to the house. Between the house and the garden is some of my fruit trees, that pear tree that I've showed you before. I've got mineral tubs up against the fence right out there that I've got some of my cherry tomatoes planted in. So I stopped out there and took a little breather under the shade and kind of regrouped, collected myself. And then I got up here to the house, and I had water here on this little table. And I try to bring water out with me. When I first bring it out in the mornings, of course, it's got ice in it, and it melts while I'm up at the garden or watering flower beds or whatever it is I happen to be doing. And really and truly, the water wasn't cold, but that's better for us. Chugging ice cold water when you're overheated like that, extremely hot, is not really safe for you. It can kind of make you sick to your stomach. And so although the water was kind of lukewarm, it feels really good. And I've got a fan hanging up behind you guys and a water cooler here on the porch that Howie's set up, and like a little portable water cooler. And so we've got air moving here on the back porch so that it's a comfortable respite, a place that we can get out of the sun and take a little bit of a break. And so I did that. And when I was watching the news last night, they were talking about the heat that we were going to have today, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday is here for my part of Oklahoma. We're supposed to be between 102 and 104 degrees, so that we're under heat advisories for those days. And the weatherman said something that caught my attention, and he was right, and I had just done that very thing that day. He said what gets a lot of people is they're out doing projects, and they have just a little bit more of the project to do, and they're tired, they're hot, they're over hot, they know it, but they want to complete the task. It's just a little bit more. I'm just going to just finish up this little bit, and then they overdo it. And that's what I did yesterday, knowing better. I knew better, and we've talked about it before, And we need to make sure that we practice what we preach. We preach taking care of ourselves. We preach, making sure that we are doing all of the things to keep safe out in the sun and the heat. We need to practice those things ourselves. Now, what I do when I'm up in the garden or I'm doing other tasks, and I'm sure you guys probably do the same thing, is take a little bit of a break, especially when it's humid and it's hot. As you just sometimes have to just sit down in the shade, take a little bit of a break, give your body a break. I tell that to Blade. Blade works in HVAC, does the same thing that his daddy did. He's up in attics a lot. In other places where it's hot, normally if he's working on an HVAC job, there's no air conditioning, because that's why he's there, is to install air conditioning or to repair it or whatever the case may be. And so he has a little crew, and he has to make sure that they're all doing the same thing, taking breaks, getting rest, drinking something cool. They drink Gatorade. They drink sports drinks. And of course, that's putting electrolytes back in them. I don't like sports drinks myself, and so I usually will drink water, but there are shrubs and switchels and things like that, if you like the taste of them, that you can enjoy as well. And perhaps in the coming weeks, I can kind of show you some of those little shrubs that might be fun for you to make and enjoy, even with your children. But I would shy away from a lot of soda when you're in a heat situation like that. You're not going to get the recovery that you need. I wouldn't chug cold ice water. I would sip whatever it is that you're drinking. And I'm a coffee drinker, but in the last week or so, I've only made a pot or two of coffee because it's just been too hot. And I know a lot of you faithful coffee drinkers say it's never too hot for coffee, and so for the most part, water it is for me. I used to love sweet tea, but I can't have the sugar, and so I don't drink sweet tea anymore. But there are lots of herbal teas and different teas that you can make. Keep yourself hydrated is one of the big things. Taking a break. Another thing that I would say is when you're going to be out in the weather, in the hot of the day, the heat of the day, with the sun, make sure that you're wearing loose-fitting clothing, that you are wearing a hat. I used to wear a sun visor because the big floppy hats, I knew I looked ridiculous in the big floppy hats. I'm sure I did in the sun visors too. But I soon realized that the sun visors weren't really doing a whole lot for me. My neck was still being exposed. My ears were still being exposed. And some of the medication I'm on, I'm not supposed to be really out in the sun a whole lot with those, because it makes the sun exposure mixed with what the medications does something, and I burn worse. On top of that, I'm very, very, very light complected, and I burn easily. Through the years, I have run, I don't know how many camping trips that our family had, and my brothers would be so mad at me because I'd get sunburned and I'd get sick, and have to come home, be blistered up, and just be in miserable pain with sunburns, because I just was super, super sensitive to the sun. Now, when I was a young girl, we picked blueberries, and I worked in the blueberry fields, cleaned blueberries, packed blueberries for shipment to the stores to be sold to consumers, and so I was out in the fields a lot. The very first blueberry fields that I picked in, had any experience in, was for a friend of my mom and dad's. And when he first came out to the fields to show us where we were going to be picking for the day, he had on some lightweight coveralls that were long sleeved, and I thought, mercy, how in the world can he stand to wear that out in the hot summer? I was probably 12 or 13 years old. What I didn't realize, that was actually cooler on him than the clothing that we had on, which was probably shorts or skirts or little t-shirts, whatever it was that my mom happened to have for us to wear at that time. And so sometimes putting on a long sleeve shirt, I know a lot of times Howie, when he would be out working on the tractor or whatever, out in the fields, he would have on a lightweight long sleeve shirt to keep the sun off of him. And it really does help. But don't overlook the floppy hat. I don't have my hat on, obviously, but I did switch to one of the big brimmed hats. I don't wear the little sun visors anymore. I don't wear ball caps because my ears still get burned. The back of my neck still gets burned. I have switched to the wide brimmed hats, and it does a better job of coverage for my neck and my ears and my face. I still get a little bit red, but I haven't had a bad sunburn since I have been wearing the big hat. Now, the next thing that I would say is don't overlook your recovery time. When you come in from being out in the heat of the day and the weather of the day, I usually, now this is not scientific, this is not, something that they teach, but this is what I do for myself so that I don't get sick. When I come in for recovery, I usually come from the yard or the garden or where it is that I have overheated at, and I usually stop in some shade and take a little bit of time there, and then I come up on my back porch. Now, I've already told you I usually have water here to drink. I have the fan, and I spend a little time recovering this way before I go totally into an air-conditioned house. My house is air-conditioned. It's nice and cool. And before I step into that and shock my body, I stay right here on the porch and cool off some before I move that next step into there. And I'll tell you one reason why I do that. When I was a young girl, we got a swimming pool. Now, it wasn't a big fancy pool. It was just an above ground pool that we could swim in. My mom was scared to death of water and could not swim, and so she got to where she didn't like to take us to the lake because we could all swim and she couldn't get to us. And so we got a pool so that it was something that if she panicked, she could just stand up and she was up out of the water, and so she felt more comfortable about that. But we were in the water a lot, and then when we go in the house, we at first had a water cooler, and then we had an air conditioning just in the living room. Our bedrooms were not air conditioned, but we would be wet, be out in the pool all day in that environment and out in the heat, and then we would come into the house, and I began to have nosebleeds, really bad nosebleeds, to the point that I had to go to the hospital and have my nose packed and be put on medications and different things. And one of the things that happened to me was the blood vessels in my nose broke. And the doctor said it was because being in a moist environment and then being in a drying environment, that combination every day of the two was really, really hard on my system. And so my parents began to regulate how we swam, and then we rested out in the yard, maybe under the umbrella at the picnic table or in the shade. And they would usually have those little icy pops or popsicles or whatever, and we didn't really ever get lots and lots of pop, but they would keep us cooled off. My mom's favorite thing to give us kids was cucumbers and onions sliced and kept in a vinegar and water solution, and we could have all of those that we wanted. And then she would take the cucumbers and the cucumber peelings and let us have them to put on our skin. And who knew back in the day that we were getting spa treatments and we didn't even know it. We were just trying to cool ourselves off. And so I have learned to take the recovery time seriously. I drink my water. I don't guzzle it. I sip it. Usually by the time I've got the water drank, the fan has cooled me somewhat, and then I can go in and shower or whatever it is that we need to take care of in the summertime, and then cool off the rest of the day, and then if we have to go out in the evening time and finish things up. You can get really sick. It's a dangerous situation when you overheat in the summertime. Blade had heat exhaustion one year when he was in high school and during football practice. When I was a kid, we had one of the junior high kids actually died of heat stroke during football practice. So just a few years ago, we had an emergency with Foxy. He's our dog, our little dog, and he had heat exhaustion. And our first instinct was to put him in. He's got a little pool, and that's our first instinct, was to put him in the pool. But we got on the internet and read all about it, and it's not to do that. Don't just put them in the water. That'll shock their system, and they needed to be treated a lot like humans do, and that it couldn't be an emergency for him. And we were pretty sure that we were going to lose him, but he came out of it. And now we keep a big box fan under the porch. They have a big area under the porch that they can get under. The dog houses are under there, and they still have lots and lots of room. They get up against the house, and it's shaded under there. But I still keep a box fan under there that it blows, and they can get, lay in front of that fan if they need to. And Blade now he has a set of clippers, and he clips Foxy because he sheds like crazy, and you can give him a cut and it's not long, and he needs another cut because the hair just keeps coming. So anyway, those are just a few of the things I would suggest for the kitties and for adults too. When you're in the shade, when you need a little bit of a break, you're taking those breaks. Keep the little icy pops. The kids love icy pops. Keep those. That can cool them down. Some cold fruit in the refrigerator. Cheyenne and I, and my sister and I have had to do this before. I have some galvanized buckets, oval-shaped buckets, and when the electric was out with my sister, and then with Cheyenne and I the other day, we just put that water, fill them up with water from the water hose, and we put our feet in them, and you'll be surprised how much that'll cool you off. Now, if you're overheated, don't just put your feet in the water like that. You don't want to shock yourself. It would be a gentle, slow process. But if you're just hot and there's no electricity, you can cool yourself off by putting your feet in a pan of water. And I've got dish pans that we put the babies in, Howie and Rowdy, and we cool them off. So I just wanted to bring a few things for you to think about, to keep yourselves cool, to take those breaks, give yourself recovery time. Okay, guys, I hope that was some useful information that you can take and be safe this summer when you're out doing projects or you're just having fun. If you find yourself being too hot and needing to take some recovery time. So until next time, guys, this is Josie. I love you guys. I really do. Keep looking well to the ways of your household. Until next time, we're gone.